the last few moments, Mr. Simon Jordan, Tottenham have extended Son's contract by a year, so it now runs to the summer of 2026. Heung-min Son extends Tottenham contract to 2026. You were asking questions of him yesterday, were you not? As to where's he got himself to?
Well, I wonder if he's fit. I mean, I've understood through various channels, not Daniel, by the way, that he's had surgery last year, and so that some of the things I was looking at him in a couple of games that I've been to watch Spurs this season, and I'm thinking he's a mile off. He doesn't look like the same player that's captured all the attention. At one point last season was the leader replacing Harry Kane. He looks like a bit part. And it might be because he's not 100% fit. So I was questioning the idea of whether Son had run his course and whether it was time for Tottenham to change up. Evidently not.
Yeah, evidently not. So there we are. Heung-min Son extends his Tottenham contract to 2026. Of course, a very important week for Tottenham. Every week is an important week for Tottenham and for all the Premier League clubs and the ones in the Carabao Cup. We'll get to that. Last night, what did we see? Nottingham Forest beat Wolves 3-0 to go joint second. I tell you what, Simon, Forest joint second with Arsenal, now extended their lead over Chelsea to 4 points and Newcastle to 5. Two things really. Is the Champions League very much on for Nottingham Forest? Or, as I said in the introduction, whisper it quietly, might we have a Leicester on our hands? What do you think?
Well, you're going to get a litmus test for that argument on the 14th of January, aren't you? Because they're going to be able to do a double over Liverpool if they beat Liverpool. And they, in the return leg of the first fixture, they played them on the first team to beat Liverpool at Anfield, the first team to beat them this season. So we'll see. I would suspect no. I don't think the circumstances are quite the same as when Leicester won the league. I think people played down the narrative of Leicester all season and underestimated. And I also think the bigger sides fell away. Liverpool are not falling away. Liverpool are in ascendancy, irrespective of a 2-2 draw against Man United.
Okay.
I would think it's a tall order, even for Forest to get into the top 4. Now, I probably am the least qualified person to talk about Nottingham Forest this season, given the fact that I tipped them to get relegated. So my viewpoint on it is probably skewed by that seemingly absurd observation now.
You don't think the Champions League's on?
I think it's a challenge for them. We're going to see. I mean, look, they've done remarkably well and they deserve to be where they are. And I'm pleased that they are because they're a wonderful football club. And every time I went to see Nottingham Forest play, whenever I was with Palace, it was always a sense of occasion and a sense of an environment. You go up there, the fans were wonderful. There was a feeling about this football club. That's why it's such a shock that it took them 23 years to reclaim their place amongst the elite. Marinakis has been writing cheques with his mouth that we'll see if he can cash, and at this moment in time he's cashing some of them because they're second in the league. Now, do I think that they might get overtaken? Possibly. Do I want them to be? No, I want disruption. I want teams like Nottingham Forest to be in the top 4.
Yeah.
I want the Premier League to be a revolving door of opportunities for a variety of different football clubs, and that's why I dislike the current incarnation of PSR, because it doesn't enable people to do that. Espirito Santo has caught a wave. He's done really well. His side are playing a brand of football that is exciting and pragmatic. I mean, it's probably slightly more pragmatic than is exciting. It's a counter-attacking side. But I think they're good value for where they are. You know, I would have expected them to beat Wolves, irrespective of the fact that Wolves have had a bounce, because Forest are in good nick. Chris Wood is having a season of his life.
Yeah.
You know, Chris Wood has never been this absolutely prolific. So all of them are, it's about how depth, if they lose key players, if Woods gets an injury and suddenly the goals start to stop, if you see Morgan Gibbs-White obtain another injury and come out the side, do they have the depth? I don't know, because I don't study that Forest in that amount of detail, but they're doing brilliantly well, and all the credit has to go to the manager, the players, and also the owner, because he's given him the tools to work with. Fair
enough. I mean, you mentioned PSR. Considering the trajectories of both clubs, Wolves and Forest, in the last year, the cases of Forest and Wolves, do they not show that you can fare better breaking the rules rather than sticking to them? Wolves kept inside them, much to Gary O'Neill's annoyance, and he had to say goodbye to a certain number of players.
Yeah.
Marinakis and Forest very much didn't. They went on a spending spree and said, okay, have a pot at us if you want, but that's how I'm doing it.
Yeah, but they tried to get around it by arguing the idea that Brennan Johnson was sold at a discount.
But they kept their squad together.
They sold Brennan Johnson. And they've acquired decent players, and they've acquired them at decent prices. And the arguments that raged about who bought the players and how much Steve Cooper was being challenged by this deluge of players that was brought in eventually has found its level. And Nottingham Forest are being successful.
Yeah.
Do I expect sides like Arsenal that have more depth and slightly more pedigree to catch Forest? I suspect so. Do I want them to? No, I don't.
No.
I want Forest. I'd love to see Forest. Do I think Forest are going to win the league? No. Do I think they resemble the team that went up in 1977? Absolutely not. That's a far better side. But I look at this group of Nottingham Forest players that to me are playing in the right way for their manager, with the right spirit, with the right attitude, and they're going in a good direction. And fantastic.
It's a fantastic story.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.